Hello, and welcome to GTFO Academy, the series where I go over very specialized topics in-game within a bite-sized format ranging from novice to advanced skill levels. So let's go ahead and get started with today's advanced topic, which is how to solo melee kill the three main giant type enemies. These three main enemies would be the big shooter, the hybrid, and the big striker, and we are going to be going over them in that order, so let's go ahead and get started with the big shooter. Let's start off with trying to stealth kill one. I don't really ever advise that you do this, as not only is there not really a point, it's semi-inconsistent. In order to actually successfully do it, you need to hit the occiput on the big shooter with a fully charged hammer hit 2 times in a row. The first hit will obviously cause them to stagger forwards, and if you stay pretty much like right on top of them, almost every single time they're going to attempt to shoot you before they attempt to scream. So this gives you time to charge your hammer and hit them in the occiput a second time. This is semi-inconsistent, as I said, because sometimes shooters will just scream right off the bat and you won't have the opportunity to ever hit the second occiput. And if you even miss one of the 2 occipits, the shooter is basically guaranteed to scream, and the second occiput can be fairly difficult to hit just because of how jank the hitboxes are when you are standing on top of an enemy. When it comes to solo killing them while they are awake, it is actually quite easy to dodge their shots. As you can see by this footage, you can just run in and out of them over and over. If you tap A and D repeatedly, you can just weave in and out of their shots, and most of the time it'll cause them to miss. Next up we have stealth killing hybrids, which is actually kind of similar to stealth killing big shooters. You should be able to hit the occiput on your first hit at the minimum. You should try and aim for occiput on all hits just so they die faster. But you can actually bait their melee attacks out to force them to melee you every single time instead of screaming. What's nice about melee killing hybrids is that the dash mechanic is actually used. The dash mechanic is the pressing shift while you are moving left, right, or backwards. And you stay within the hybrid's melee range, and when he starts to begin his melee, you quickly dash backwards and then smack him in the back or on the head. This ensures that you actually stay within his melee range, so he will always attempt to melee you instead of screaming, and it's actually far more consistent than both stealthing chickens and stealthing big strikers. When it comes to killing woken up hybrids, the melee bait tactic used in stealth works fairly well if the target is isolated. If there are multiple things trying to hit or shoot you at the same time, it is not as viable, as you are very likely to take damage. When it comes to dodging their shots, it is probably one of the harder things to do, but it can be done simply by running in a left and right zigzag through their salvo until they stop shooting. We're going to talk about killing awake big strikers first over stealthing them, because if you don't know how to kill them awake, you won't be able to stealth them either. Also, to recap, the different breakpoints for the body, the parts where you can actually break for the giant to force stagger, are both arms, both legs, the head, the chest, and the pelvis. When you are doing this, you need to make sure that every single one of your hammer hits is hitting one of those breakpoints. Another thing to note is that you cannot break more than 4 of a giant's limbs off. Once you break 4 of them off, that's it. You cannot break any more than that. This means for your 5th hammer hit, as you cannot break a limb to stagger, you need to dash backwards much like you do for the hybrids in order to avoid getting hit with the melee, and then your 6th hammer hit will kill the giant. What order you break the limbs and what limbs you decide to break do not matter for the most part, with 2 exceptions. The head needs to be broken at some point so you can avoid a very nasty bug that the giants have. And if you hit the chest, the only limbs you will be able to break are the giant's left leg and his head, because for whatever reason breaking the chest causes the rest of the giant to bug out. There's also a bug where if you deal exactly 120 damage to a giant, it will not actually die as it's supposed to, and it'll be left on a decimal point of health, meaning that anything in the game, literally anything in the game, will kill it. When it comes to solo stealthing big strikers, it's quite similar to killing chickens and hybrids. You want your first hit to actually hit them in the occiput, and then after that, it's much like just killing one that's awake. Make sure that every single hit is staggering it, and because you are hitting the occiput, you will experience the health bug, so after your 4th melee, you can tap him with a hammer and he'll just flat out die, because he'll be on a decimal point of health. I don't really recommend anyone ever do this, because it just creates more problems than what it's worth. It feels RNG dependent if the giant is actually going to scream or not. Although standing closer to him does cause him to melee and tongue more often, it is still not a guarantee, and because they take so long to kill, that is a lot longer time that they have to potentially scream and wake up the room. But that pretty much wraps it up. Although it can feel very impractical at times, learning how to melee kill all giants is something that every player should learn if they're trying to do some of the harder levels. Levels like D1 Extreme and just E1 of Rundown 5, learning how to melee kill giants is so valuable. It allows you to save a ton of ammo, and it allows you to actually clear rooms very, very fast if everybody's doing it. It's also one of the more fun things to do in the game, and there is very little that is as satisfying or even close to being as satisfying as solo hammer killing a giant striker without taking damage. Outside of that, I've got nothing else. If there's a specific topic you'd like to see, go ahead and leave a comment requesting it, and I'll see about getting around to it. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and you guys have fun.